and kick it off with stand up like we always do. What did we learn yesterday? What went too fast? What sunk in? What was the light bulb moments? All of that good stuff.
That arrays make your brain hurt because it's a lot.
That part.
And arrays can have arrays that can have objects that can have arrays. Lots of data structures kind of thrown at you all at once. But the good news is we're going to get more practice with them tonight. The movie theater app does not go away. And we're going to go through what we did, the last step that we did last night, as well as a little refresher. So I don't expect you guys to get the loop that we did last night right out of the gate. That is about as complex as the data structures get. So we will continue on that tonight with a quick little refresher, making sure we're understanding the data. And then today we are going to continue getting our seats to show up and making it so when we click on them, it goes to selected and all of that fun stuff. Anything else from yesterday? Anything that we should revisit or slow down on tonight? Karen had a question. Are the comments helping any of you? Do you want me to continue doing that?
They helped me a lot. Like initially when we started it, just the JavaScript screen alone that we were typing in, I really it was a lot to take in, but once you started putting the comments in, that it did help a little bit.
Good, that's good to hear. So Christy, you were about to say something?
Yeah, and I just think that what I'm gathering from a day to day is just the need to study. Like I just feel like you need to study JavaScript. Like it's not like CSS where you can just go grab some links. You really need to, because some of the stuff, and even the stuff that I know that I learned, when I hear it again or I see it again, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. So it's just
So that's a really good point, and I want to just touch on that. We've got 12 hours of classroom instruction a week, right? And we go 26 weeks and get a full stack curriculum in there. I know boot camps that teach our exact same curriculum, 30 hours a week of in-classroom time. You're expected to do it full-time, 40 hours a week. The extra 10 hours is homework and study on your own. And it's a 2-year-long program. So that just touches on, we are really packing all of this in here, right? So we don't expect the 12 hours a week for you to walk out of the 12 hours a week and be like, that's it, I'm done, I get it, I'm a full stack developer, right? This obviously takes so much more time and investment into making this happen. So I was talking with Max Gerlach and Jesse, and I'm like, there is just no way to cover all of this material and not make it feel fast, right? It's like, I'm trying to slow it down. I'm trying to get examples in here, but the important thing here is I don't expect you guys to be able to write this program, at the end of this week, right? This is not, we are going to continue layering in those concepts because, believe it or not, you have been exposed to about 90% of all the JavaScript concepts. So now it is just a matter of how do we use those variables? How do we use loops? How do we utilize the document object model to get our JavaScript to talk to our HTML, right? There are all of these concepts, and that concept list, and Christy was saying this earlier, is only got about 10 things on it. But look at the crazy code we're writing with all of those 10 concepts, right? So we're going to keep practicing with them. I am always a project-based learner, but like I have said, if you find any resources where you find a light bulb's going off for you, chances are that resource could help another student. So feel free to share them. And the other thing that I recognize is that during class, it's like you feel like you're getting run over with all of this content. And then over the weekend, you catch up on the homework, you review the videos, you get your footing a little bit more. And then all of a sudden you go into the next week and you feel reset. So it's important to remember that in the back of your head as well of, hey, I may feel like it's going really fast this week, but as soon as I have a chance to catch up, maybe things will start clicking a little bit more. So I don't want you to keep giving me the feedback, right? If you think something is going too fast, let me know in class, interrupt me, because I think the polls yesterday were the only reason why I was able to get through what I did get through, was you guys were giving me feedback and saying, I need more time, or I'm still working on this. All right, I'm ready. Let's go on to the next thing. So I think the polls have been more helpful for me maybe than they have been for you guys. So I just wanted to say I really do appreciate getting that feedback.
So I wanted to ask, I guess you and the class. So Sunday was helpful for me, but it was me and Doug, and Strong J was listening. So if we vote our office hours, can we come on and maybe talk to each other, like maybe use it as a study session instead
Absolutely.
of, because I think that at this point, keeping the momentum going would be better than just not at all.
Yeah, and I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm definitely all for that too.
I'm glad you're asking that, because I've actually had that idea of, do we make office hours almost 2 hours and I'm there for the first hour and then I go away and you guys can still stay in the Zoom room. So the way the Zoom link is set up is there is the meeting host doesn't have to be in the meeting for the meeting to start, because Zoom weirdly is set up like that sometimes. So you guys can always use this Zoom meeting link even outside of class. So if you guys want to decide in the back channel without me in it, hey, like Sunday at 9 a.m. is a good time for all of us, feel free to pop in this Zoom room and use that link to collaborate. Or if you want to do it in person, that's also completely fine. I will send out, well, I'll just ask you guys, does Sunday morning or Sunday evening work better for most of you?
I'm good with either.
I would say the evening.
Okay, I think evening is what
Evenings, yeah.
evenings. All right, so let's say Sunday at 5 o'clock for office hours, and I am going to say my attendance, I may or may not be there, but either way, you are welcome to come into this Zoom room and use them just to touch base with each other. And then if I can be there, I will.
Okay.
Work for everyone? Cool. And then I'll leave it open as well. So once I leave, if you guys want to keep going without me, that's also totally fine. Okay, I am going to jump in unless there are any comments that we should touch on before we get started. Okay, I am going to share my screen, and I am going to get started by going into my code folder, my week 8, and I'm going to duplicate my day 1 folder and just rename it to day 2. If you are someone who keeps on working out of the same folder to do the whole project, that's also fine. You do not have to do this step. I just like having my code at different days so I can kind of see the progress as we're going. So I'm going to open VS Code. I'm going to go File, Open Folder, and do this on the right monitor. Come on. Open folder. I'm going to go to desktop, my code, week 8, day 2, and I'm going to pop that whole thing open. I'm going to open up my index and my script. I'm going to go live, and I am going to remember where we were at with our seat showing up and our drop down. And then I am going to also start a live share and dump that into Slack. Okay, so let's just do a quick review of all of our JavaScript, right? So our HTML is pretty easy. We started with a little h1, we added a p tag, we had our select, and we put our ID on it. And because we put it an ID on it, that means we can hook in using the document.getElementById, or the document object model, the DOM, in JavaScript to get that data. And then we also have a div ID seats in all of our chairs. And this material symbols icon, material symbols outline is coming in from the material symbols icon library with Google. So in our script.js, and interrupt me, by the way, at this review at any point where you're like, say that again or say that differently. We started out at the very top with our const movies. And our movies we know is an object because we've got those curly braces going on there. So our object always have keys, which are strings, and then values in them. And the value can be any data type. So our keys here are the name of the movie, and then the value is an object. That object has two keys in it itself, price and seats. The price is going to be a number type, and the seats is going to be an empty array. And we set them up as an empty array because we're going to generate those seats and put them in rows and columns down the road. So this is kind of our general go-to source of all of our data. Whenever we want to know what's going on in our app, everything is contained in this movies object, but it's a mega object because it's got objects inside of it, and those objects have arrays, and those arrays have different arrays. So what we do to get started is we say, hey, wouldn't it be nice if our dropdown over here was coming from the data that was in our JavaScript? And the real reason we want to do that is so if we add, excuse me, if we add a new movie like Toy Story and add in a price of $11 and our empty seats array, when we save that and come over here, all of a sudden our dropdown is going to have that in there automatically for us. So the whole point of having this in our movies is that we can update it in one place, and our HTML interface is just going to automatically update for us. So what we do is we use the document get element by ID, and then we pass in the movie dropdown ID that we added to our select into our HTML. So we come in here, we store that in a JavaScript variable movie dropdown so we can reference it down the road. Then we say, hey, we need to generate out the options, and the options is going to be some HTML in a string. So we started out with an empty string, right? Just two double quotes saying, hey, we're nothing in here yet, but it is going to be a string. So just get it set up for us. Then what we did is we come down and we do a for loop, and we say for, and we need object.entries here because we want to get two things out of the object. We want to get the key out of the object, which happens to be the movie title, but we also want to get out the value of the object, which is this price and the seats themselves. So what we do is object.entries dumps out the key and the value. And so we can console log at any point when we're like, what's coming out of here? I want to see what this code is doing. So what we ended up doing is saying options, go add something to the options option string. And we're going to start with an option tag because that's our HTML to get a new option to show up. And we're going to add the key. Well, the key is coming out from our object.entries movies, which is going to be our movie title. We then add in some string for some text formatting to get the $sign in the parenthesis to show up. And then we go to the value. Well, the value is going to be this entire object right here. So when we say dot price on that object, we are going in and pulling out the price key to get the value of 8. And then we do some more text formatting to make sure our closing option tag is there. Because this is a for loop, it's going to run through all 4 of the movies up here. And then when we come down here, our options is a string that's generated all of our data out for us, right? So now that that's ready, we work in reverse. We say, hey, go get the movie dropdown, and whatever the inner HTML is in there, in other words, whatever is going to be in here is going to take our option string that we just generated and put it into our HTML for us. And that's a really important concept, right? Is the document object model is a two-way model. We can put data into our HTML using JavaScript, but we can also get things out of our HTML and get them into our JavaScript. It works in both directions. Pausing there for any questions before I get into the complicated stuff.
Can you tell me again what for means?
Yeah, for is just telling the computer, hey, we're about to loop over something. So there are different kinds of for loops, but we're basically saying for each item in this code, do something. So each time anything in these parentheses, anytime we say, hey, there are 4 items in this object, we're basically saying for each item in here, do some code in here. So that's why it's called a for loop, because you're saying for each thing that we go over, what would you like it to do? And so the keyword for is here, and then we tell it how many times or what we're pulling out of it for each loop. And then whatever is in these curly braces is what's going to execute for each one of them.
Okay.
Any other questions there? There are some programming languages that don't call them for loops. They just call them loops. That would make a lot more sense, but JavaScript does not. Okay. So now we've got this thing called generate seats. And so we put it in a function because we basically wanted to say, hey, I may need to call this elsewhere. All of this code is a block of code, right? I'm going to need a bunch of things for it. So what I'm going to do is I put it in generate seats, and we have an empty parentheses here because it isn't taking in any parameters, right? It's just saying I don't need any input data in order to make this work. We then have an arrow function, which is saying, hey, function is heading your way. And we have these curly braces. So when we go to call generate seats down here with the parentheses, it is coming back up to generate seats here, and it is going to run anything that is in those parentheses.
Max?
Yep.
I'm sorry, it's probably not related to what you're saying right now, but can you just really quickly explain again the difference between like the curly braces and the brackets, and like how do we know which one to use?
Yep. So curly braces do double duty, brackets do not. So whenever we want an object, we're going to use a curly brace, right? So whenever we have key values, we're going to use a curly brace. So you see we've got a curly brace here, we've got a key, and we've got a value. But because this is a curly brace on its own, we use a key and then we see the value. However, for arrays, the way whenever you hear array, you want to think a list of data. The arrays are going to use the square brackets. So we could say const my array is equal to square brackets. So this is an empty array. And then we can put whatever we want in the array. So we can put strings in the array. We can put Boolean values in the array. We can put numbers in the array. So whenever you see a square bracket, that is going to be an array data type. Just like whenever you see quotes, that is going to be a string data type. Numbers and Booleans do not need quotes. It just knows true or false, and it knows that a number is a number just in its nature. So we are going to use parentheses whenever we would like to execute or call a function. So document get element by ID is a function that is built into JavaScript, but we want it to run that code. We want it to actually go out and get that element. So we're going to use parentheses to say execute that code. But get element by ID needs some input in order for it to work. It needs to know what ID it would like the element of. So what we do is we use a quote here to say, hey, the data type we're sending into you is a string, but the first thing we're sending in, the only thing we're sending in is called a parameter or an argument. And that is what it is going to go out and get the element for. So parentheses are used for executing functions, right? Which is why you see them down here. We say generate seats, and because we put the 2 parentheses after it, it is now going to come up to this entire section of code and run that code. Is there anything I didn't answer for you there? We also use curly braces whenever we have a block of code. And so when we're talking about a block of code, think about it just as a hunk of code, right? So this for loop, we need to tell it, hey, what are you going to do for each time you go over a movie? So this curly brace all the way down to this curly brace is saying every time you see a movie, go run all of this code. Those curly braces are also used for a hunk of function code as well, right? Anytime you call generate seats, run anything between this curly brace and this curly brace, which is going to be all of this code. So whenever you see a curly brace that is not used for an object, chances are it's going to be a block of code. And whenever we have a new block of code, we indent it another level.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that touched on most of the syntax, but if at any point you're like, hey, why are we using a square bracket there instead of a curly brace? Call me out on that. Let me know, and I can definitely help on that. Okay.
Just
Chris.
real quick. So what
Yep.
you just described is called JavaScript syntax.
It sure is. And every programming language has slightly different syntax. So in Python, instead of using curly braces, it uses colons. In Python, it actually reads tab indentation to figure out what is in the for loop. So in Python, if you don't have your code indented properly, it won't run at all. Or it will do something really weird and run a different number of times because it's reading that indentation. It's definitely a different style to get used to. Some people like it a whole heck of a lot more because it reads more like English. Some people absolutely cannot stand it. I am one of those people who ride or die JavaScript. I prefer JavaScript syntax over anything else.
You know, they just made PyScript, right?
What's that?
They just came out with PyScript.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so they don't even have the documentation yet, but it's out.
Great. Always new languages and frameworks. It's a balance to know when you need to learn something new and when you should stick to your guns. Okay, so let's get into our seat generator. So we know we have to generate out seats, and we really need to identify how many times do we need to loop over something to get all of these seats generated. So if I go to the final product that we're working on here, we need to put seats in all of these movies, right? Because every movie is going to have their own set of seat data. So if I open one of those, we see our grid going on. And whenever we see a grid, we're thinking rows and columns, right? So we know we need to run over all of the seats at least 8 times because we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows of seats. So the first for loop that we have here is going over each one of the movies. So that's going over each one of these drop downs to generate the seats. Our second for loop is running over num rows while num rows is less than 8. And so what this is doing is it is generating out each row of seat that we add in down here. Our final for loop is running over the columns. And so every time that for loop runs, the column for loop, it is going to generate out our seats as we go across. So this inner for loop is actually running 8 times 8 times however many times of movies we have, because they are all nested within each other, right? So this is going to run as many times as this is done, but as soon as this for loop is done executing, it's going to go out to this for loop and go, oh, we need to do that for each row. And then when that for loop is done running, it's going to say, oh, we need to move on to the next movie and regenerate out all of those seats. So most complicated part of this code is definitely the for loops. But basically what we're doing is we're saying every time we have a new row of seats, we're going to create an empty array that we're going to store the seat in. And then for every time we go over a column, effectively each seat, we are going to push, which is adding the seat in to the end of this row here. And then once we are done generating each one of the columns, each individual seat going across, we're probably done with the row. So go to the movie coming from our outer for loop, go up to the seats, which is going to be this empty array all the way up here, and push in the entire row. So we can prove all of this is working because if we go to our console, not the page source, if we go to our console and look, we've got an object printing out with all of our movies. And if we open any one of the movies, we can look at the seats, and in those seats, we can see all 8 rows. And in those 8 rows, we can see each object in those arrays, which is representing the column. Zach.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So we're using the command push. Doesn't push add it to like the end of an array?
It does.
Could we also use, I forget what it's called, the command that puts it at like the beginning of the array?
Is that a pop?
Maybe.
Unshift, shift.
Yeah.
You could. Normally when you build an array, you start at the top and then keep on adding to the end of it, right? So if you think about like a to-do list, normally when you add items to the to-do list, you're going to add it to the bottom of the list instead of moving the whole list down and putting it at the top. However, because the order doesn't matter here, because all of the columns and all of the seats are essentially the same, you could totally do shift here and it wouldn't make any difference. But normally I would say 90% of the time that I'm working with an array, I'm going to use push because I want to add it to the end of the current list instead of adding it to the beginning. But in answer to your question, you could totally use shift here.
Okay, thank you.
Someone's been doing his free code camp homework.
Trying. I feel like I have to read all the text on every exercise like 3 times before I finally like get it, you know?
Yep. That's totally normal. All part of the process. Okay, so do we have any questions here before we keep going? So let me ask you guys, looking at the final product here and looking at what we have so far, what do we think the next step is?
More chairs.
More chairs, exactly. So what we ended up here was we've got all of our chairs, but sorry, we have 1 row of chairs in our HTML, but I don't really want these chairs to just be in our HTML. I would really like all of these chairs to be based off of my JavaScript, right? We've got this mega object here called movies, and it's got all of the seats in them. Wouldn't it be nice if that when I picked a movie here, it would pull up the seats for that particular movie? So what I'm going to do is I first need to make sure that when that select changes, I know what movie they have selected, because I need to be able to pull out the seats for that particular movie. So what I'm going to do is right under my, after I set the options, I'm going to go to the movie dropdown and I'm going to say on. And on is a special function built into JavaScript that allows us to get access to events. So when something is clicked on, when something is typed in, when something gets the cursor put in it or the cursor comes out of it, or when an input is changed. So what we are going to do is, I'm sorry, this should actually say add event listener. So the event is something happening on the page, changing the input. And then it needs to know what event do we want to listen for. And you can see there are all different kinds of options here for click and close, but we want when it is changed, when the event in the browser of that input gets changed, we want to do something. And because we may want to do several lines of code, we need to pass in a function. And in that function, what we are going to do is get the event itself. We want to know what is going on. So we're going to get the event. Now you can call this anything. It is a pet peeve of mine when people call this E, because they'll literally just type the letter E and then you're like, what the heck is E? I don't understand what's going on there. So I like to call it EVT, or the whole word event. And to see if this code is working, we're just going to console log out the event. So I come over here, I change my dropdown, and I get this thing that says event. And if I pop this open, oh boy, I get all kinds of data on the event. I see the target of the event. I see the path, which is basically saying, hey, it was on the movie dropdown, which is in the body, which is in the HTML, which is in the document, which is in the window. I get the target of it. I get all kinds of information. The type of the event was a change. All of that's fine, but I would really like to go into the target, and in the target, I would like to get access to a whole bunch of data in here, but eventually I will get to the value. And the value says Citizen Kane $10. Okay, so you're telling me if I come into the event, if you notice that event has curly braces. Well, if it's curly braces, that must be an object. And if I come in and I look at the target is also an object. So I could almost come in here and say, hey, the event has a target. What was that event on? That will be the target of the event. And now that I've got the target of the event, I could also get the value. So if I save and I come over here and I refresh, now we get Citizen Kane. And if I change it again, I get Toy Story. So before I get too far, I just want to pull up the document of the steps that we were working on last night. And we're going to keep going on those. So we are going to say add event listener to the movie dropdown to detect when the selected movie has changed. Okay, so we've got our change going on, but if we look at what's changing, we've got the price in there, and that price is going to be a pain, because if we look at our object, the object has the price data in it. The key of the movie itself does not have that. So that's going to get in the way whenever we would like to access the selected movie and line up what the select has in it with our movies object. So in order to solve that, if we go down to where our option is generated, option has a optional parameter or attribute that we can add to it called value. And that value is going to get set to something. We would like the value to get set to the key, because the key is the movie title coming from the array. I will stop there in a second. Let me just show this working, and then we'll get that working. So now when I change here, when I save and change over here, what comes out is just the movie. Spelled wrong, but just the movie. So if I go to Citizen Kane, I now get Citizen Kane coming out. So let me review how I did that. We now, because this is getting so long, it wrapped onto multiple lines. What we're doing is we're saying, hey, start with the value here, and then add some quotes, because if we look at what is coming out in our final output, it's the select with the value of the movie title, And then this is almost the label of the option. This is what the end user is going to see, but the value is going to keep track of what we would like the target, the value of the dropdown to be. So that's a good time to stop and start a poll and see where you guys are at. Let me just, can I get, oh, so the code that we added is we modified our for loop here, which is generating the options. And then we also added our event listener for the change on the value.
Where did you put your live share, Max?
In the live stream channel in Slack.
So my question was about the single quote. That's where I got, let me see.
Yeah, great catch there. So because we've got a double quote that is saying, hey, there's a string coming in, if we use a double quote in here, it would get really confused and say, well, you've got an opening quote and a closing quote. What's this quote doing in here? So we use a trick and we use a single quote, and then we make sure we have the single quote going on in here. So if you look at the output in the HTML, it does all the right things, but we have a single quote and a double quote. Did you guys go over template literals and free code camp? Does that ring a bell? Backticks and dollar signs and curly
Yes.
braces? Okay, so I'm going to show you an alternative way to write this, which is kind of the preferred way. There used to only be two different kinds of strings, right? You could either use a double quote or a single quote, and it would do the exact same thing. But JavaScript does this all the time, where we want to build out a string and put things on the left and right of it. So wouldn't it be cool if we could write out a template of what that string we wanted it to look like? And then when we wanted to put a variable into the string, we could use special syntax and it would know, hey, take the string and dump the value into it. So we can achieve that with a template literal. So I'm actually going to just comment this out for now. We can say options plus equal, and then a template literal, instead of using single quotes or double quotes, we're going to use backticks instead, which is the key under escape and above tab. And so now that we've got backticks, we can create our string just like we did before, where we say options value. And because we're using backticks, we can use our regular double quotes in here and have it not get confused. So I'm going to write out my whole thing. And now when we want to actually put something in this value, we can say $ and use our curly braces. And what that is doing is it's telling JavaScript, hold up, this isn't just a regular string. Go get the key and dump it in for the $ and the curly braces area.
Max, should that be option value?
It sure should. Thank you. And now in here, we can use that same syntax to say drop in the key and then have our parentheses with the $ and drop in the value price. And if we save and come over here, it should do the same exact thing. So template literals are a great way when you need to get a variable into a string around other text. You basically can create this template, and then when the code runs, because the $ curly braces are in here, it's going to go get the key and drop in the key for the $ and curly braces and that variable name in there. So this code and this code are doing the exact same thing. So whichever you prefer is completely fine. Got 8 votes in. I would like to shoot for 10.
Do you mind taking a look at my code?
Sure can.
Let's see. I'm not sure what I did wrong in this line.
Open, close. You are missing a let me just remote control because it's going to be
No
easier to
problem.
put my cursor where you're missing it. So you have your opening and closing quotes here, which is fine. Then you add in the key, and then you're trying to add in this single closing quote to match this single closing quote. But you are missing this closing quote and the plus.
Oh, okay.
And then you are also missing in here, there should be a closing bracket because that's going to close this one out. And then you put in the movie title and the $sign, the price, the closing, and the closing option. So if all goes well and we go live again. Nope, we broke it. We broke it really good. Let's take a look at your console. And it says key is not defined. And that's because up here, instead of saying key, we're using movie title. So if you just say movie title, and movie, we are back to working.
Gotcha.
Any questions on that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very easy to get caught up in that syntax, and that's why template literals came out in ES5 or ES6 to basically say, hey, it's common that we're going to create a string with a variable in it. So that wouldn't it be cool if we could create a template and then it will just drop those strings in for us?
I was just watching along, but don't see my seats on my browser. I don't know why.
That's fine because we are about to dive into the function that is going to make those seats show up using our JavaScript.
Okay.
I have an error message. Should I wait until we?
Nope, let's get it solved.
Okay. Share
So
screen.
just so you guys know, we're about half and half right now. We've got 6 people who are caught up and 5 people who are just along for the ride. And I think that's a pretty good ratio for us.
Okay. Do you see Chrome?
Yeah, so the 404 is just trying to load the favicon. That isn't an error that we need to worry about. What I am concerned about is that your drop down doesn't look like it's got any movies in it. So let's go to your JavaScript.
Okay, let me, all right, let me switch to share screen.
And you are on the left.
Yes.
Okay, so you're using my fancy template literal, which is fine.
This is wrong.
Oh, found your own problem before I could.
Is that what it was?
I
Yep.
think it is.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. So now we've got our event target value going on here, but we're going to want to know what movie is selected in other parts of the code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the top, and we like to declare most of our global variables, i.e. global variables, meaning we can access them anywhere in our code towards the top. So I'm going to say let selected movie equal, we're just going to say let it, We're just going to say, hey, this exists. And then when it gets selected here, instead of console logging out the event target value, go ahead and say, hey, the selected movie is now going to equal the event target value. Whenever we change it, shove that in selected movie so we can get access to it easier down the road. So now that we've got that, we said something has to happen. We have to get our seats to show up in our HTML. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, hey, I would like to console log out the movies coming from up here, but log out the movies that was selected. So when I come over here and go to my console and clear everything out, when I change to a different movie, I get the price of 10 and all of the seats for that movie. And I know that's working because if I change it to Toy Story, I get the price of 11 and those seats. Okay, so if I have the movie itself, which is coming from this object up here, I can go into that object and say, I would like the seats for that movie. So now when I pick Toy Story, I get this array of arrays, but when I pop it open, all of my individual seats are in here. So we need to go through this and say, hey, for each row of seats, go through each column of the row. Letting that ruminate just a little bit. And what we're going to do is all of this, we need to have some HTML that we're going to update. So just like we have our let options up here at the top, be our kind of our starting place for where we're going to put our HTML, we need to do the same thing here. So we're going to say let seats HTML start out as an empty string. And every time that we start on a new row, go to the seats HTML and add a div. And then every time we are done with an entire row, go back to the seats HTML and add in our closing div. Don't worry if none of this is making sense to you. I'm going to add in this 2 more lines. We're going to see it working, and then maybe seeing it working, we'll get things to click over here. So each column is going to be each seat. So what we are going to do is we're going to go to our seats HTML, and we are going to add our span with the chair. So I'm going to copy this whole span line, come back over here, and add in our chair. Now at the end of all of this loop, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to console log out our seats HTML. So I come back over here, I pick a movie, and whoa, we get a lot of HTML there. There is no human way to know if that code is actually working and doing what we want it to or not. So what we're going to do is we are going to say, hey, once you've made all the seats HTML, go to our index and get the ID of seats. So document get element by ID. The ID we want to get is the seats. And when you get those seats, go to the inner HTML and make it equal to our seats HTML that we just generated right here. So I come over here, I change to a different movie. Whoa, I got chairs. And I can change to another movie and I still keep all of my chairs. Okay, let's take a step back and go through all of that code now that it's written. We have our movie dropdown. We are going to add an event listener, and the event that we're listening for is the change. Whenever that dropdown is changed, hey, JavaScript, I've got some code for you to run. That event, the thing that happened in the browser, gets passed in as the parameter. The event knows what the target of the event was on. And once we get the target, we can pull the value out. So the value is just going to be whatever movie we selected. All right, now we know what movie got selected, but we need to go out and pull the seats out. So seats is coming out of our movies array. So what we're going to do is we come down here and we say, hey, create seats HTML, make it an empty string. That's where we're going to generate all of our HTML to go into. And what we do is we say, go to the movies, pull out the selected movie based off of what the dropdown is saying, and get the seats out from that selected movie. Once we pull the seats out, we need to go through each row of the seats. Okay, now for each row that we get into, each row is going to go into its own div. Once you have created the div for the row, then go through and pull out the column, each individual seat that is in the row. Now, for every time that you're going in and pulling out each individual seat, add this span with the chair to our HTML that we're generating out. Then, when you are done with each column, each individual seat, then go to the seats HTML and add in our closing div to match our opening div. And once you are done running through each one of the seats, then take our seats HTML that we just generated out and put it into the inner HTML of our ID that says seats. So I know we just pulled, but that's a major chunk of code and a lot to understand. So I'm going to relaunch it there. Does anyone have questions or think they would benefit from trying to explain the code themselves? I'm not getting any I'm lost, which is the only reason I am not panicked that we have crickets right now.
I think for me, I'm just trying to put the code in so that I can see what you see. And then I think seeing it will help me, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, same here. I'm mad behind. I tried 2 different monitors. I know I need to get a new one. But now you're on my TV, so you're like way up there. But yeah, so the code is very far away, but I'm still right behind you.
Cool. Just take a minute, let everyone catch up for coding along.
Hey Max, that back tab that you use on the span, is it necessary? Because I got the same outcome without it.
If you used a single quote instead of a double quote, it would work fine. The only problem is I use double quotes in my class equals, so I used a backtick instead. But if you used a single quote here and here, that would also be completely fine.
Okay, thank you.
So at this point, what should our code be doing?
It should be generating out the seats whenever you change a different movie in the select dropdown.
Okay, so I'm missing something.
Stephanie, go ahead.
Okay, let's see. I found one of the errors, but before when I was saving it, it said I had 2. Oh, it
You are
doesn't say
missing a
anymore.
closing arrow on line 48 for your div. And you have selected movies instead of selected movie on line 43. And I think that's it, or if not, it's the only ones that I noticed right off the bat.
Okay.
So, although, why do you only have?
So I was gonna have this, I had the same issue. So when mine starts out, I only have the 8, but then when I switch, well, she has movie 1 there, but when I switch through the other movies, then it populates
That's
all the rows.
that's fine, Larry. We'll fix that once
Okay.
we get started again. It is a bug, but it's a bug we will fix in a second. So pop open your JavaScript console for me, Stephanie. It's going to be the double arrow next to elements. Oh, that works too. Okay, so 34. So we fixed it, but now you're doing both syntaxes. So you only
Oh.
need 25 through 33 or 34.
Gotcha. So this is where you commented out
Yep.
all of them, right? Okay.
And if you just highlight like 28 through 33,
oh my goodness.
and hit Command/, it will comment it all out for you.
Oh.
And
okay,
then just comment out 24 for me. And because you are using key and value in your template literal, we have to like undo what we just did here. So this shouldn't say movie title, it should say key. And this shouldn't say movie, it should say value.
So this one you said key?
Yep. And that one should be value. And now you have your movies. And if you change the drop down, you get all those lovely seats.
Nice. How come oh wait. Oh, never mind. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, Max, I kind of had the same issue. I selected that I did it right, but then I looked at what you did and I don't have all those seats. I only have 8 seats on each.
Okay, raise your hand because you're in line behind.
Oh, I'm
Shantina.
sorry. I didn't even see their hands. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. I did that yesterday. Am I able to share my screen?
Yep.
There it is. Thank you. I have all these red, so I'm a little bit behind, but I have all these red parentheses and I can't figure out why.
Okay, that's because 16, you used a single quote to start out the template literal. You need to use a backtick instead. So
Good.
if you, delete that out,
Mhm.
and then you're going to type a backtick, which is underneath the escape key. And then go to the end and do the same thing. And
Oh.
if you save that, that should at least get you to the point of making sure the options show up in your,
Yep. That was it. Darn it, I should have asked for help earlier. Thank you so much.
no problem. All right, Scotty, now you're up.
Okay. All right, I might need to just move everything over. This is what I'm getting though. So it's on each, but all of them
Aren't
not.
doing all of them. Okay, so let's go to your JavaScript.
Mm.
Your movies, add the change, do your 4, do your selected movies, add in the seats, go to your, okay, go to your index. Got your div ID seats. You've got your ID on your movie dropdown. All right, so I'm stuck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to your script.js. And what I'm going to do is between line 26 and 27, add a console log. and then parentheses, quotes, and just add the word hit. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out if that line of code is getting hit or not, because what that's going to help us understand is the problem with the event listener, or is the problem with the function itself in the event listener. So if you refresh on that and then go change your drop down to something.
Oh, it just cleared out. It just say movie 1 and 2 now.
Yeah. So we've got a problem in the console on script line 22. It says option is not defined.
Okay.
So let's go look at 22. And 22 is trying to add something to option. But what we have created is called options.
Oh, okay.
And actually, it would be better to leave that S there and make it on 22 options, because we are adding multiple to them. So go ahead and save that. And then head back to your browser. And now your movies are in there. And if you change one of them, what happens? Okay, now we've got a problem on 30. Cannot read undefined of seats. So 30, it's saying seats HTML. Oh, change selected movie. Okay, so you've got a similar problem. Selected movies is scroll up to see if you've got that defined anywhere. You've got let selected movie. So your plurals are what are killing you there. So save that. And then now change your drop down. Now we've got seats HTML is not defined on 31. All right. Feeling good about this being the last one. 31, seats HTML you don't have defined anywhere. So in other words, it's trying to add a div, but because it doesn't have seats HTML, it doesn't know where it's starting. So on line 29, you're going to add a new line. And so just enter there and say, let seats HTML semicolon. And it's going to be a let, not a let's.
Let.
Okay, save that and try it again. Hey, I don't know where your undefined and your semicolons are coming from, but you're on the right track.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else stuck? We've got most of the votes in for the poll. We've got 11 votes in, which I think was almost everyone who was voting. Any questions?
I didn't vote, but I got my seats.
Awesome. So I'm going to go back to screen sharing. So we've got all of our seats in here, but you would just have to take my word that they're working for different movies, right? Because all the seats are exactly the same. So wouldn't it be nice, because this is just a little demo, if there was a 50% chance that the seat would be occupied when we generate out all of the seats? So I'm going to come back into my code. Actually, I'm going to go to my steps, add event listener to the movie dropdown to detect when the selected movie has changed and make the HTML show the seats for that movie. Okay, now we are going to modify our seat generator to randomly make half the seats be occupied. Make roughly half the seats be occupied. So instead of, because we never want to have a seat selected, right? The user is going to select the seat. But for the occupied, we can do a little trick in here. We can say math.random. I know you guys are panicking. It's the only math we're doing in this entire project. And we're saying random generates a number between 0 and 1. So if we want it to be true half the time, we're going to say, well, math.random is less than 0.5. And then we are going to save and console log out whenever the selected movie gets changed, console log out the movie that was selected. So I'm going to save. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to change my movie, and I get movie is not defined because it's movies. I change my movie. Now I get my seats here. And if I open my seats and look at the first row of seats, I see some of them are occupied. So I want to fix one thing first before I forget. When we first load this page, it should say, please select a movie to see available seating, but we've got this row of seats in there. Well, by default, no movie should be selected and there shouldn't be any seats showing up. Well, the seats that are showing up are in our HTML. We don't want seats to show up. So we're going to take that out. And now nothing is in there, but this movie is still selected by default. So in order to get something not to be selected here, we've got to tell the options, hey, there should be a blank option in there, and that's what it should start at. So if I go to my script.js and I look at wherever we generate out our options, instead of options starting as a blank string, it's going to start out as a blank option. So I save that, I come over here. Now it's blank. And when I select it, I get my seats popping up. So I'm going to add that to the steps as well. Remove HTML for the seats that show up when the page first loads. Modify our options generator to include an empty option. So when the select first loads, it appears to be blank. Okay, now I'm going to go back to what I was actually working on, which is we've got all of our seats in here. And if we look at the object, we can see they are occupied, true or false. But on mine, they show up in red if they are occupied. So we need to do some styling to make them show up as red. Where are we going to do our styling?
In CSS?
We sure are. So we're going to go to our style.css, and we're going to add a new class called occupied. And if they are occupied, the color is going to be red. So I save that. I come over here. I look at my code. Why aren't they red?
So there's no ID for occupied?
Well, we made this thing called occupied, but we haven't used this class anywhere. So what we need to do is we are going to go to our script.js, and when we are adding all of our seats in here, we need to say, hey, use this template literal. And if the col is occupied, then we want to add something called occupied to it. Otherwise, do nothing. Whoa, new JavaScript concept. We're using ternary operators. We'll come back to those in 1 second. Let's see if it works. We're going to save it. We're going to come over here. I'm going to select the movie, and I've got my seats in red. And pay attention, it's the first and third one. If I switch it to another movie, I get different seats. But if I switch it back to that one, it goes back to the seats that are occupied for that particular movie. Okay.
Next, what's that question mark about?
Yeah, let's take a step back here. So we know what the dollar curly brace is doing, right? Because it's in a template literal. It's saying, hey, pause. Whatever we're about to put in here is not the string itself. We want a value to be dumped in here. So what we did is we went to our style.css and we created the new class called occupied. But now we need to use that class. So whenever we're in here and we select a different movie, we want to add a class called occupied. But we only want to add that class if the seat is occupied. Well, occupied is coming from our column, right? It's coming from the seats that we're looping over all the way up here. So what we're doing is we are saying, hey, go look if the column is occupied. And if it is, we are going to use a ternary operator, which is what this question mark is. It is also the other way you can think about a ternary operator is an inline if statement. So if the column is occupied, then add in the class occupied. Otherwise, that's what the colon is saying, don't add anything in. You know what time it is. It's poll time.
Max,
Yep.
I've got an error and I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. I've been trying this whole time. Can I share my screen?
You can now.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna move that. All right, so mine is on the right. Let me just. Oh, I did not mean to do that. All right, so this one is mine.
Okay, what's the error in the browser?
It's showing this.
Cannot read properties of undefined reading seats. Okay, so go to 36.
36.
And
Okay.
movie drop down, add event listener, your change. You've got your selected movie, which is coming out of the event target value. What you did not do is you got stuck right. I'm just gonna request control. You got stuck right here. You started adding in the value right here, but then you didn't add in the key again. So what you're going to say is the value is equal to these double quotes, and then you want to add in the key, which is the movie title.
Okay.
And now when we go back to Chrome and refresh and change.
Oh my God, why are they in a row like that?
That is probably something wrong with, oh, you're missing a closing arrow here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so now when we go to Chrome and change it, you get them.
Oh goodness, thank you.
No problem. So that's a good opportunity because we're doing a lot here. So let me go back and recover this. So
Okay.
before we didn't put a value onto the option. We just had the key and the price. But what was happening in your code was that when the movie got changed, it was pulling the value out of the option. But because we didn't have a value here, what it did is it used whatever was inside the option as the value. So when you changed your dropdown, it said, oh, let me go to the selected movie. I want to go find The Godfather parentheses $8. And it was like, well, The Godfather $8 isn't a key. So what we did to fix that is we said, hey, let's tell the option the value that we want to come out when the person changes the dropdown to that option is going to be just the key. It's not going to be the key with the parenthesis and the $sign and the price.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No problem. Everyone, just one more minute before we keep going here. So the reminder of where we're at is that when we change our movie, I'm not sharing my screen. When we change our movie, we should see the seats for that movie and see them change as we click on different ones.
Max.
Yep.
When I click back on the blank option, then all the chairs still stay there.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's fix that. I bet you that's a glitch in mine that I did not think of. Yeah, would you look at that? Okay, so on line 45, it's saying cannot read undefined property seats. So here that was exactly the problem we just had, right? It's trying to go into this object and it's not finding it. So perfect opportunity here to say, hey, try to do, whoops, try to do all of this code. And if it doesn't work, catch any error and get the document, get element by ID, grab the seats, and set the inner HTML of those seats to something empty. There are other ways of solving this problem, but basically what I'm saying is try to run this code. If you hit an error at any point in this code, bail out and clear out the seats. So when I come over here and refresh and get my Citizen Kane, and when I go back to the blank one, it clears them out for me. The other way we could have written that is we could say, if there is not a movies selected movie, then make the seats HTML just be blank, else go loop through the code and update the seats. But I kind of like our try catch there instead, so I'm going to leave that one in. So this is a great example of using a try catch. We know there is an error coming, but it's not actually an error. The computer is going to freak out, but we don't want it to. So we're going to say try to go update all the seats. And if for whatever reason you try to update the seats and it doesn't work, then just clear the seats out. All right, so we've got 9 minutes before break. Let's not do any new JavaScript concepts. Let's play around with our interface and get our interface to clean up a little bit. So I'm looking at my final one. And if I change one of them, I notice that there's this nice gap between the seats, almost like there's an aisle. But I don't really want to put that aisle in there because I'm generating all of my seats in my JavaScript, right? That's going to get messy. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just say, go get the third seat and put some space to the left of it, and then go get the seventh seat or the seventh seat and also add some space between it. So we see we already have our material symbols outlined here. I'm going to add another class of that, and I'm going to call it seat. I'm then going to go to my style.css, and if I target my seat and add margin left of 20 pixels to all of them, now I've got my seats, but they're all spaced out. I don't want them spaced out. I only want the third seat to have some room on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a selector, a modifier, a pseudo class. That's what they're called, a pseudo class on my style sheet. And I'm going to say nth child. We are basically going to say we would only like the third seat to have a margin left on them. So if I come over here, now I've got my space. But not only do I want that on the column there, I would also like it to go look at the seat and on the nth child, right? Because this is a child of the div we created here. So we're going to say 1, 2, 3. That's the one that should get the margin left. And then we also want it to be on the 7th child as well. Thought you guys had mastered CSS, didn't you? Come back. There's always more to learn. So we just added a space there. Now, the other thing that we have going on here is we've got the screen showing up. So the screen is a pretty easy one as well. What we are going to do is say, hey, whenever we are generating out our seats and we've got all of our divs done, after we've generated out all of that info, go to the seats and add one more div with an ID equal to screen and the word screen in it. come over. Now we've got our screen showing up, but it just says the word screen. Kind of would like to be able to make that so that it looks like a screen, right? So what we do is we go to our style and we say, hey, there's going to be a screen and it's going to get a border of 1px solid and black. Okay, that's great, but that's a giant screen. So I'm going to say, hey, that width shouldn't be any bigger than 275 pixels. Well, crap. That's not where our screen is. That would be pretty sucky seats if our screen was all the way over there. So the problem is we've got all of this content centered, but it's all centered because they're all inline elements. So what we can do here is we can say, hey, display this screen as if it were inline, but it still wants to be a block because we're setting the width on it. So what that does is it moves it over there for me and gets everything centered. And then just to finish this off, we're just going to add some padding to the top of it and padding to the bottom of it. And we've got our screen. Okay, that is all we are going to do before break. I will copy and paste everything into the live stream channel in case for whatever reason you can't get into my live share. I will open it up for any questions before we go on break.
You're not going to close the live share though, right?
I'm not. No, 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 no.
Okay.
We're coming back to this. We're not done with this project yet. We still have some finishing touches before break.
Max, where did you put the class for seats and for the screen, the ID for screen?
I put the class for seat right in our seats HTML plus equals in our change listener.
Okay.
And then I also added at the outside of both of those for loops, I added seats HTML div ID equals screen.
Thank you.
Stick around for the next 3 minutes for any questions. Otherwise, go on break and we'll see you at 7:20.
Hey, Max, can you just switch your, nope, I'm sorry. Can you just show me what yours look like? The spaces in between, I must have did something wrong. Okay.
Yep, that is going to be this code right there.
And I have said,
If you do, then go to your script.js and make sure you've got the seat added to the classes.
oh, I see what it's doing. So it looks like, and I think I know why. I think I put an N instead of an H, and let's see if that fixes my issue. And it did. Thank
Good.
you.
No problem. You like thumbs up. So the last thing I am going to do is modify our options generator to include an empty option. And then we are going to say, oh, I guess we already have add event listener for movie dropdown to detect, make the HTML show the seats for that movie. And then we are going to say add a class to the seats generator to show, that's not raised right. Add a class to the seat called occupied if the object has occupied set to true. Create that class in our CSS. While in the CSS, clean up our aisles and add in the screen div. styling in JS. Okay, Stephanie, go ahead.
Mine, okay. I'm not getting the rows to show up.
The aisles.
Oh, the aisles, yeah.
Yep. Okay. You have to add a class called seats between outlined and your template literal, which is going to go in right here. So just add the word seat in there. And space. And save and see if that fixes it. Sure
Oh,
does.
wow. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, any other questions before I run? Okay, see you guys in 20 minutes.
So whenever I change my movies, the seat and everything goes away.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look.
Share. So if I refresh, it's like that.
Yep. And
And
change your movie. Okay, so let's go to your code. And your script.js. Okay, so what we are doing here is we're saying whenever there is an error in any of this code, try to run all of this code here. And if anything in that code goes wrong, just clear out the seats. Well, the problem is that you've got errors in this code up here, which is why the seats aren't showing up. You're missing a closing arrow right there.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
Continue.
So you're missing your closing arrow on line 42. And then you have an equals plus. It needs to be a plus equals on 44 and 45. Oh, and delete out the equal on 44. Okay, save that. See if that fixes your problem. Okay, so we've got a different problem. So what we're going to do is go back to your code. Let me just see if select movie, then target value, material, symbols, added the screen. HTML. Okay, so because we don't know what the error is, what we are going to do is on line between 52 and 53, and this is a good one for everyone. If you still want the error to come out in the console, add a new line between 52 and 53 and say console.log parenthesis error. Okay, save that and let's go test and see what comes out of the console now. So it says seat HTML is not defined, script line 44. So 44, you've got seat HTML, that should be seats HTML.
Thank you. That should fix it. Nope.
Nope. Now you've got setting properties null line 51 in our HTML. So 51, get element by ID, that should be seats.
Still busy the first week of July?
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions before we keep going? Okay. So what I am going to do is I am going to go back to my app, and what we've got going on here is when we click a movie seat, it turns blue, and then down here at the bottom, it says you have one seat, well, it should say seat selected for a total of $10 and the checkout button. And if I click on another one, it says you have two seats selected for a total of $20. Okay, so let's go back to our steps, and we are going to say when a seat is selected, it should turn blue and update the text to show totals. Okay, so just like we did our movie dropdown add event listener, we have to have an event on each one of our seats. So here we used our JavaScript to add the event listener, but we can also do it in reverse. We can tell our HTML to fire off something in our JavaScript. So the way we're going to do that is in our span here on the individual chair, we are going to say on click. And what would we like to do on the click? We would like it to fire off a function called seat clicked. And then we also need the event information for which seat was clicked. Okay, well, if I save this now, come back to my code, pick a movie and pick on one of these seats, it's going to tell me seat clicked is not defined. Well, the event is firing off, but it's trying to find a seat clicked and it doesn't exist. So we have to go create that. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of my file. I'm going to say const seat clicked is going to be a function that takes in the event and just console log out the event itself. So I'm going to save. I come over here. I change it. I click on one. And now I've got this event. So it's working. But now I have a new problem. Well, I want to set this seat, whatever seat was clicked on, to selected true. But if I do that, how do I know which seat was the seat that was clicked on? Because when you think about our movies data, we've got that whole array of seats. We need to just update that one seat. So what we're going to do is we're going to be a little tricky. We are going to store on our seat the index that we are working with, right? So we need to know what row the seat is in and what column this seat is in. But now we've got another problem. We don't have access to the index. We only have access to the row and the column itself. So what we need to do here is a multi-layered approach. We've got to get the index first in our loop. Then we need to put our index into our span. And then when the seed is clicked on, we need to pull the index out of the span itself. So let's do that step by step here. We are going to say, instead of just getting our seats, we're going to use our object. I need to confirm on this. Yeah, we are going to use our object.entries trick in our movies. And we are going to pull out not only the row, but the row index. And then I'm going to come down here and just console log out my row index to make sure that's coming out. So I come over here, I switch, and I get 0 through 7 printing out. So I'm getting all of my rows. I'm going to repeat that, and I'm going to say object.entries row. And now I'm going to get the col index in addition to the column itself. But I need to get all of that data onto the span. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a data row index, and that is going to equal my row index. And I'm also going to add a data col index, and that is going to equal my col index. Don't worry, I'm going to go over all of this in 1 second. But what I can now finally do is say, hey, whenever one of my seats is clicked, come down to this event, get whatever the target of the event was, whatever seat was clicked on, and get the attribute out of the data row index. And if I copy and paste that whole thing, I can also get the col index. So now when I come over here, I pick my movie and I pick the second one down and the second one over, I get 1, 1. And remember, because arrays are 0 indexed, this is actually row 0 and this is row 1. So if I click down here, I get 7, 7. And if I click on one in the middle, I get 2, 3. Because we're getting essentially the coordinates of the seat. Okay, so let's stop there. Let's recap what we did. First, we said, hey, when we're generating out all of our, nope, not when we're generating out the seats. When we are making our seats show up in the HTML, it would be really nice if we had access to the coordinates essentially of where the seat is, right? The index of the seat. But we only had access to the row. So what we did is we used object.entries, and what that did is it gave us access to the row index. We then repeat that trick down here when we get out the columns, and now we get access to the column index. Step 1 done. We modified our loops so that we got our indexes out of it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So object entries works on arrays?
It does.
Okay, and so the key for the array item is the index.
Yeah, you know what? I think this should actually, now that I think about it, I wonder if this should be array entries. Nope, it should be object entries. That's a good question, though. I'm curious. Let's console log out our movie, selected movie seats. You've confused me, Doug.
Sorry, I was just looking for clarification.
Ah, okay. Better answer for you. So Doug's question was essentially, Max, why are you using object.entries? The row is not an object, it's an array. And so initially I thought I would be clever and just say array.entries. But no, that would be way too easy for JavaScript to do that. Instead, when you're working on an array, you say dot entries and call it this way. But when you're working on an object, you use object.entries. So because the row and the column are actually arrays, it is better written like this, because you're essentially calling the entries on the array instead of calling object.entries and passing in an array to the object class. Either way apparently works. That's the mistake that I made on my side. But because row is an array and movie seats is an array, we should be calling dot entries from the array methods instead of using object.entries. Either way is fine. Either way will work. This is just the more correct way of doing it. So we add dot entries onto our array, and that's what's giving us our row index and our column index. We then come into our span tag and we add some more attributes to our span. And you know what? This is getting really messy. So I'm just going to put in some new lines here to make that code a little bit easier to read.
Max, can I
Yep.
stop? How do I how can I attach my JavaScript to my HTML again? I started over.
In your index.html, you should have a script source script.js.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
So what we did, once we got access to our indexes in our JavaScript, we then added some more information to the span that we're working on and embedded the index from our JavaScript into this thing called data row index. And whenever you're adding your own HTML attributes to an HTML element, it is convention to put data dash in front of them, so it will never conflict with existing attributes like class or onClick. So what we did is we stored the row index and the col index in the HTML itself. And what that did is it made it so that when we have our onClick that fires off our seat clicked, it's going to come down to our seat clicked here, go get the event target, essentially the span that was clicked on, and then get the attribute of the row and the column. And what that does is makes it so when we click on one and we click on a seat, we get the coordinates coming out. Oh, that was a lot. So we're starting a poll.
Can I share my screen?
Go for it.
Okay. One second, I gotta get the, oh no, here it is. Okay, so I try to like switch them, but I think that's the reason why it's not working. But 1 second, please. My question is, I forgot. Never mind. I forgot. It was something.
Do you have an error in your Chrome?
It's not even working. Hold on. Oh yeah, my words aren't popping up anymore.
Okay, let's go to your JavaScript. And you've got your for key value of object entry movies, get the key, oh, you've got options instead of option on 22, both in the opening tag and the closing tag. Oh, no, that one. That one should say options. The other two options in that line need to be option. The very end closing tag. There you go. And save that, and that should make it come up.
Okay, but you guys are farther than this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's because you just did something though, right? It's like right after this.
Generate seats, occupied, scroll up. It should be, so I think you've got an error in your 31 through your 42. So to see what the error is on between 43 and 44. Oh, nope, the error's not going to show up because you're probably well, check there. It's probably a good idea. Console. Okay, so it's not there. So go back to your code. And because we're catching any errors on 43, they're not showing up in the console. So what we need to do is between 43 and 44, add a new line. And just say console.log error. And save. And switch back to your code. I think you closed it. You've got to start the live server again.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Is there something I have to type in the console?
No, change your movie to a different movie. Okay, now you get selected movies is not defined on 31.
Oh, okay.
And that's because it is a selected movie. Nope, movies there, but selected movie there.
Okay.
And change your drop down.
Oh,
Okay, you've got some other problems you got to solve for there.
all right, no problem.
Stephanie, go ahead.
Oh, there we go. It says I have 4 things wrong, but I'm not sure where.
Okay. Oh, okay. First things first, you've got on 45, you've got an opening curly brace and a closing curly brace. That could have been all 4 of them.
Cool.
I believe it was.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. See, sometimes you get an error and you just get the next error and you just keep working until you're error free. Sometimes you have 4 errors and you fix 1 and you fix all 4 of them. It works in both directions. All right.
My seats are missing.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen. And I'm guessing they only went missing after we started working on the column indexes kind of things. Okay, so go back to your code. And we're gonna add in, just scroll down to the catch. Oh yeah, and add in there a console.log error. So that's the double-edged sword of when you catch errors, sometimes you actually want to still see them. And so you want to add that console log in. And now you have index is not defined on 50. So let's go take a look at that. And it should be col index, not col minus index. And if you click on one of the seats, you should have a index console log out. You're good to go.
Cool, thank you.
No problem. Believe it or not, guys, we are nearing the end of this project. We ready to keep going? Christy, you have a question? Or are you good? Okay.
I'm getting the arrow on 44. I'm not sure
Go ahead and share your screen.
what exactly I'm looking at. So
Oh, okay, there we go. It just came in. Object is not defined on 44. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, selected. Your compare your for loop to my for loop. So 42, 43, and 44 is very wrong. So just compare your 42, 43, and 44 to my 45.
just change a bunch of stuff of what I have no idea. Hold on. So it was like that before.
That's it. You have to make your 42 and 43 look like my 45.
Okay.
And also plug in your laptop. Your low battery makes me anxious. Okay, we're gonna keep going here. So we've got our index printing out here, but now we need to update that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to say const row index is equal to the data coming out of our event, and our const col index is going to be equal to the col index coming out as well. And so what we want to do, ready for nested object inception here? We're going to go to the movies. When we are in the movies object up here, we need to go into whatever movie is selected. So we are going to go in to the selected movie. Once we are in the selected movie, we are going to go to the seats for whatever movie is selected. And once we get into the seats, we are going to go to the specific row index for the seat that was clicked on. And once we're in that row, we are then going to dive into the column index for that seat. And all of that is going to be equal to clicked on seat. Once we find the seat that is clicked on, we are going to set selected equal to true. So I save, I come over here, I click on my seat, it does nothing. Okay, but I get no errors, so that's a good sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to console log out the movie that is selected and give me the seats on those. So I come in, I click on my movie, I click on my seat. And if I go in here and I say, look at my first row of seats, I can see my selected is getting set to true. Okay. But if I look at my seat, selected isn't in here. Well, it isn't in there because all of this code to generate out all of my seats here only gets run when my movie changes. Well, that's not good. I want my span to get updated when I click on a seat. So the naive coder would just copy all of this code and shove it down into this event listener. But we're going to be updating our seats and we don't want to have to copy and paste all this code every time. Wouldn't it be nice if we could make a function called update seats HTML? And what that would do is go through all of the seats and update the HTML for us. So I'm going to take this whole try catch all the way up to the seats HTML, shove it into this function instead, and call update seats HTML. And then I'm going to go down here. And now that I've got my seat updated, I can also call update seats HTML. Okay. So now I come over here, I pick one, I pick my seat, and when I go and I look at it, okay, here's my seat, but I don't have a class on it. I need to add a class. Just like I added my occupied class, I need to add another one that says, hey, if the seat is selected, then use a selected class. Otherwise, don't use anything. And if I'm using a new class, I have to create a class called selected, where the color is going to be blue. Come over here, I pick, and it just craps the bed on me and says, no more seats for you. You just did too much, and now the students are confused. So let's see what's going on. Script.js, I need to call, when the movie gets changed, update our seats HTML, all of that. Let me remove this console log, and I need to add my own console log error and figure out what the error is. So I get seat is not defined on 56 because that is called call. Okay, now when I click on one, it turns blue. We've got our seats getting selected. Okay, let me go through that one more time and then I will start a poll. So what we did is we said, hey, we need to update our HTML when our seat gets changed when it's clicked on. So first thing we do, we go into our seat clicked, we take our row index and our col index, which is coming out of the data row index, and then we say the clicked on seat, and we've got to dive through our data. So we're going to say movies, get the selected movie, look only at the seats for that movie, go to the specific row and the specific column that was clicked on, and shove all of that in clicked on seat. Then take my clicked on seat and make selected equal to true. But now we've got the problem of it's updated in our movies object, but it's still not updated in our HTML. However, we already have all of this code in our movie change listener that's updating our HTML for us. So we took all of that code and made this new function called update seats HTML, and took most of the code from the add event listener for the change and put it in its own function here. Once we've got that all in a function, what we are able to do is add in another conditional for whether the seat is occupied or selected. Once that's in there, we can call update seats HTML both here in the change listener and down here when the seat is clicked on. And then finally, we go to our style and we set our selected to true. All right, whoever was able to follow me through that gets a gold star if I launch this poll and you immediately say you're caught up.
Can you do the console log really quick for that so I can see what changed?
Console log where?
Just at the end, I guess.
Yeah, so what should be happening is if you click on any of the seats, they should turn blue. But what it looks like is if you open this and open this and this, I don't know, is that logging at the right spot? 81. No, it's not. Console log movies. And the selected movie and the seats. Okay, so when you go to one and you click on the seat, if we open this and open the first row, it's setting selected to true.
Okay, thank you.
Stephanie, go ahead.
When I select my seats, they're not turning blue, so I'm not sure what part I left out.
Okay. So first thing we need to do is you've got your see how we have the seat and then occupied, question mark occupied, and the quotes 55 through 57. We basically need to do the same thing for that we did for occupied that we need to do for selected.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay, so here, let me just pop in here. So what we're doing, this section of the code, oh, come on. This section of the code is saying, hey, go look at the column. And if the column is occupied, then add the class occupied in here. Otherwise, don't add anything. We need to do the same thing right here. We need to say, hey, if the column is occupied, is selected, then add the class selected. Otherwise, don't add anything.
Oh. Gotcha.
And then let me just check. And then in our style CSS, we need to tell it, hey, what does selected look like? Selected is just going to make it go blue.
Gotcha.
Give that a test and see if it works. Nope. Okay, so still don't have something going on. Let's
Yeah.
look at call selected. Let's look at your. Okay, so here you're doing all of this right. You're getting it selected to getting it set. And you've got this lovely function up here that's doing all of the work for you, but you never told it, hey, when you click on a seat, after you set it to selected, go ahead and update the seats HTML.
Ah,
Give that a try.
hey,
Nice work.
cool. Thank you.
No, I did a lot. I probably went a little bit too far with too many steps. So we're going to pay the price now, make sure everyone's caught up. Don't want to lose anyone.
Well, can you help me get caught up then?
Yep.
All right, can you just wait 1 second? Thank you. Can you see my my code?
Yep.
Okay. So I just came from over here. It said sorry, my TV's far. Just looking for this. Oh, here it is. Okay. And then 61 generate seats is not defined.
Yeah.
And,
So much.
and 61 is right here.
Okay, because you've got generate seats and generates seats.
Wait. Oh, all right. Why is this on the side? Can you tell me how to put this back on the bottom?
Yep. It's yep. You click right where your mouse is. Oh no, one over those dots, and then the dock is that one.
Okay.
Change your drop down to a movie. Okay. Even though the chairs aren't showing up, if you actually click on the word chair,
Mommy.
okay, that isn't working either. You're like several steps behind. Does anyone else need help? Because this is going to be a recap of the past like 30 minutes if we get that caught up.
Oh no, it's fine. We don't have to do that then.
Okay, I can stick on. We're almost at the end of this project. So we should have 30 minutes at the end to work on this if anyone's stuck.
Okay.
Yes, Max, I am stuck at a point. Sorry. Can I share my screen?
You sure can.
Okay. So I know it is my line 32 that's saying that it's the error, and I'm not sure why. And I think I created another error on line 41.
You did. How did you get? What's the error in the browser?
1 second.
Don't forget to save before you go over
Oops,
there.
sorry. Let's see. Go back and. Okay, so.
Unexpected identifier. Well, that doesn't help me at all. Go ahead and back to your code.
Okay.
Change event, curly braces, closing. I gotta be missing something higher up. Let me. Oh, no, I don't have. Request remote control. Fine. Updated seats HTML is equal to. Oh, you're missing a curly brace. And then I don't like, why is that not white? Opening, oh, now we've got this problem down here. So you can't use the $ curly braces here unless this whole thing is in a template literal. And the way you make it a template literal is with that backtick.
Okay, thank you.
But now you've got, sorry, you had a template literal already going on up here. So this should be just a quote and close out that one. Now I think you're fixed.
Okay. No.
Okay, so update seats is not defined on 28. So you should be able to solve that one without me.
Okay, thank you.
We understand whenever it's saying is not defined, it normally is you got an S where there shouldn't be an S, or you've got something named wrong. You're trying to call something essentially that doesn't exist. That's undefined. All right, we got 9 votes in. I would love to get to 10 so we can get this project over the finish line, but we'll give you guys 1 more minute.
I don't know if I voted or not, but I got it in.
Cool. See, you guys are all caught in this dilemma of you think it's going too fast, but at the same time, you've got time in class to catch up, so you don't know how to really feel. It's the enigma of coding, making it feel like it's too fast, but at the same time, also learning all the concepts. All right, we got 11 votes in. So we're going to keep going here. My green screen is freaking out. See if that helps it. Okay. So we are going to get this project over the finish line. What we need to do is when one of the seats is selected, we need some text down here at the bottom that says you have 2 seats selected for a total of $20. So that is going to say, hey, whenever we click on a
Can you
seat.
share your screen, Max?
Oh, no. Stop. Share screen. This one. Okay, let's give that a try.
Thank you.
Okay, so when we click on a movie, we need to keep track of how many seats are clicked on. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to say let num selected seats equal 0. And every time that a different movie, well, we'll leave it at that. So what we're going to do is every time a seat is clicked on, we are going to add num seat selected, add 1 to it. So the shorthand there is ++. That is going to add 1 to the seat selected. From there, we are going to say, hey, whenever we update the seats HTML, down here at the bottom, in addition to adding the screen, we are going to say if the number of selected seats is greater than 0. In other words, if there is more than 1 seat selected, then come in here and say seats HTML. We're going to += add a new div that says you have num selected seats selected for a total of, oh boy, here comes math again. We are going to say, hey, take the number of selected seats and multiply it by the movies, whatever movie is selected, get the price. We save. Come over here. We refresh. We pick our movie. Oop, wrong one. We pick our movie. Notice this is a $10 movie. So if we click on a seat and we click on another seat, we get you have 2 seats selected for a total of $20. And if I, okay, so now if we look at the final thing we've got to do here. We pick our 2 seats. We hit the checkout button. And it says normally we would get your credit card, but for now we'll just mark the seats as occupied. See you at the movies. So as soon as I hit OK here, those blue seats turn to red. So you need to do one final step here, and then we are done with this project. We're going to go to index.html. We are going to, actually, we're not. In here, if we've got selected seats, we're also going to add a button. And the button, when it is clicked on, is going to run the checkout function. And in the checkout, we're going to close out the button. We need to define our checkout function. So we're going to come down here and say const checkout is equal to a new function. And in that function, we are going to go through all the rows of the selected the movies, selected movie seats. And then we're going to go through all the columns of that row. And if the column is selected, make the column occupied and make it not selected anymore. And then once we've updated all of that, update our seats HTML. And set the number of selected seats back to 0. Come over here. I know that was a lot, but we click on our 2 seats. You have 2 seats selected for, oh, wrong code. You have 2 seats. It says you have a total of 2 seats selected for $20. We hit the checkout button and it turns those seats red and we are done. So this is where we're going to end the project for this class. However, this is a great portfolio project. In fact, it is such a great portfolio project that I stole the whole project off of a 20 great JavaScript projects for your portfolio class. So what I would recommend, once you get all of the stuff working from class, you may want to do a little cleanup. You may want to set a background color. You may want to change the font. You may want to play with some spacing. You may want to deal with what happens when these seats are selected and we go to another movie. Well, we've got some cleanup we've got to do down here. There's some next steps you can do on this to do a little bit more styling on this and make it a polished portfolio piece, which would give you a little bit more practice on your HTML and your CSS. But I am hoping that you guys finish this all out, add in whatever styling that you would like, and add this to your portfolio so that when I check your portfolios at the next project week, your personal websites, they have this movies added to it. Okay, that is all I have for class tonight. If you were able to get all of this working, pat yourself on the back. You've kept up with near Roadrunner speed, but we got to the project finish line. With that said, I did want to leave 20 minutes at the end of class to help everyone hopefully not just limp to the finish line. And it is important to say, hey, got 90% of the way here, right? Because I know over half the class was following me every step. So you guys got very far. Now I just want to help you guys get caught up to the end. And if you have it all working, you can get out of here. Congrats. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening. Or if anyone needs a recap of what we just did, let me know where you need a recap and I will start going over that.
I'm still catching up. I'm still actually writing in code that you just put in. So I don't know if you want to still help me or not.
I'm gonna give everyone a minute unless you're like stuck, Nicole.
No, I don't think I think I just need to fill in some stuff.
Okay. Yep. Let me know when you get stuck or you get an error that you don't understand.
Okay. Okay, quick question. So did we get rid of the material icons? I think that's where messed up. Like the materials.
You shouldn't have.
Line. So like. Okay. So yeah, like I'm not seeing it on yours anymore. Oh, I see one of them. Oh.
Yeah, so we should have this link. I'm not sharing my screen.
1 second, 1 second. Congratulations.
So here we've got our link to the material icons in our index.html. That should still be there. And then the thing that you want to check is in this span, we've got a whole heck of a lot going on in that to make the chair still work. So this is where you want to make sure you've got your span tag. You still have your class equals material symbols outlined. You want to make sure your opening quote and your closing quote are all there. And then you want to make sure it still has the chair in here and the closing span tag. So this behemoth span is where things are going to go wrong. And if only we had a framework that would solve all of this and make it easier to update the HTML. If only it would almost react to the data changes that we made as we were updating the data. Just planting the seed for 4 weeks from now. Stephanie, go ahead.
Okay, 5 errors this time.
Okay, your highlighting of colors goes wrong at 77, and that's where you've got your first red squiggly. You've got your 66 through 68 should be a template literal because we're using the $ curly braces in it. And whenever you hear template literal, you should think backticks. So 66, instead of using a single quote, it should be a backtick instead. So delete that and use the backtick under the escape key.
Oh, I see it.
And then also on 68, the backtick on your keyboard may win the award for a key you never knew was on the keyboard you've been typing on for at least a decade.
Yeah. Huh. No.
All right, well, now at least you've got an error. You've got selected movies is not defined on 68, 67. And that should be a selected movie.
I did it again. Okay.
Woohoo!
Yay, nice. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Good work.
You help me with mine?
Yep, go for it.
I changed some codes and everything is all messed up. So
Okay, so we shouldn't have movie 1 and movie 2. So save your script.js, go back to your browser and go to the console. Oh, okay, go to the console. In the browser. Yep, and you got update seat HTML before initialization on line 39. So go to line 39. And you're trying to call update seat HTML, but update seat HTML, you then have defined on line 41 through 43. So look at where my update seat HTML is compared to your update seat HTML. The change event only has these 3 lines of code in it. And then update seat HTML actually has all of this in it, which should have all of this in it.
One more time.
So look at my add event listener for the change is now only doing 2 things. It's pulling the value out, and then it's calling the update seats HTML. And the update seats HTML ends up being a whole new function over here with most of the code that was in the add event listener for the change. So what we did is we basically relocated all of this code in here. We relocated it into a new function called update seats HTML, but that is outside of the add event listener change.
Okay.
So here, let's this add event listener is now done when it does the selected movie and update seat HTML. The update seat HTML should include all of this code in here.
Okay.
So now you can go back to your browser and change your drop down and click on a seat. And you've got some other problems there because some of those seats should be red and the seats that you're clicking on should be blue. So you've got some work to do there. And you know what? Just go back to your code, your JavaScript code.
Sorry.
First of all, save your style.css. We need to add in, we've got occupied. We need to add in another one called selected because whatever is selected should turn the color blue. And then in our code, I notice you are missing a space between what comes in for occupied and selected. So give that a try. Well, they're turning blue. They're just not turning red. If it is occupied, add the class occupied, but I'm guessing you are missing. Nope. Occupied. Did we do? Here it is. You are setting all the seats to occupied false. What we did is we said, hey, randomly decide if half of them should be occupied or not. So test that. Okay, now you got your red showing up, and if you click on a seat, it should turn blue. Okay, so that's good. The last thing you would need to do is add in that line of text at the bottom that says you have 2 seats selected for a total of $20. So I will let you work on that. No shame in getting stuck somewhere if you need help. Might be closer than you think.
Uh, excuse me. I'm having some trouble.
Go for it.
It's saying I have an error on line 43, but I'm not finding anything.
Okay, let's take a look. 43. So you've got an equal between your parentheses. On 43, I just call update seats HTML, but the equal is what's confusing it.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Make sure you saved in. Oh, well, now you've got unexpected token script 50. So let's take a quick look at that. You've got your try catch. All of that is fine. It's confused because you don't have a closing template literal on 59, the closing backtick.
I took that out because I put it in. It made like the rest of my code get weird.
Take out the second one that it put in for you. You should only have one closing one. Put it in, hit the right arrow, and then yeah. Yep, there you go. And then your other problem is,
See, like this backtick down here is like identified as
yeah, hold
like
on,
a starting one.
Let me get in there. So you've got something. Update HTML, but this is the opening. Then we've got our try catch opening. That's
It
all
like
fine.
doesn't recognize it as being the closing one, right? It looks
Right.
like.
But
I don't
you
know
know
why
what?
though. I don't see another one.
It doesn't look like, here's our problem. You just didn't have
Oh.
your window expanded out enough. So I think you just
Extra
got
parentheses.
too many parentheses.
Okay.
Although that looked right. And then opening movies, selected movie, seats, entries, come out there. And then you do, is it normally white? I don't know your theme enough.
Yeah.
Class seat, share. It doesn't like this closing span.
Yeah. Like on my screen, the code for you, chair, and span are all white. But on my screen, it's purple for some reason.
Got it.
Oh.
See if that worked. Nope. Now we've got one at 77. We're close.
Yeah, when we were copy pasting, I got confused.
No problem. It's not like we tried to build an entire app in 2 days or anything.
For the update seats thing, when we copy pasted that, that's where I got lost.
Selected seats, get it, catch it. I think we just have an extra parenthesis here that we don't need. Oh, now we got one at 118. So whenever we create a new function, oh, no, that's just a lingering one. There we go. Come on.
Nice.
Okay, well, now you have a num seat selected seats is not defined. That should be in, well, num selected seats should be in your checkout method because that's when we want to reset it.
Okay.
That's got that. I think that was a different error. That is on 101. 101 update seats HTML num seat selected seats. I believe you called it num selected seats.
Oh, okay.
So 1, 2, 3. Boom. Nice work.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey Max, can you help me?
Go for
it.
And we're not covering anything else tonight. So if you've made it to the point where your seats are turning blue and it's telling you the total, you are good to go. I will create a homework for this on Canvas and it won't be due until Sunday. Okay, so you've got
Good night,
num.
Good night.
You've got num selected seats is not defined on line 49. So let's take a look at 49.
Everyone.
Have a good one,
night.
Doug.
Okay.
Good night.
Okay, so num selected seats is you're doing that on 49 right here.
Uh-huh.
So let's go look up where you set your let num selected seats equal 0, which is going to be at the very top of the file.
And that's probably what I'm missing because I don't even.
It sure is. So scroll up to the top of mine and it should be on line 9.
Underneath the, oh, okay, right here. So when it say it's undefined, it need to be set with a let.
Yep.
Okay, and then don't kill me because I think it's something else, sorry. Whoa, there. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I broke it.
All right, so go back to your code.
Okay.
And wherever we've got the try catch. So in update seats HTML probably, or not, keep going down.
I don't have the try and catch in mind.
Okay. In that case, oh, here's your problem. You've got all of this lovely complicated code that's generating out all of your seats, and you've got this seats HTML that you set in here, and then you tell the computer, screw all of that complicated code and clear it all out.
So question, do you only have that because of the try and catch?
I sure do.
Okay, and I took it out before and put it back because I felt like I was missing something. So hopefully that.
Yay.
All right, so then my other issue, I feel like I got a lot of things going on. When I select that, my chairs, it's not doing anything.
Okay, so you need to look at the on-click method and make sure your on-click is working.
Sorry. All right, on click in this area.
Yep, you don't even have it added to your span, so you need an on-click on your span.
On my actual span.
But I'm going to let you work on that and then come back
Gotcha.
to you if you've got problems.
Okay, thank you.
Nicole, go for it. I'm going to have to unmute you.
Thank you. My mouth was all the way over there. It keeps saying I have something on 30. I'll show you what it says.
Update seat HTML is not defined. Okay, so go to that. And that's because look at line 30 and then look at what you're trying to call.
Above it, right? Is it above it?
Nope.
Oh.
What is update seat HTML supposed to be doing?
Changing the list of movies.
Which is all of the code starting on what line?
Up here?
Nope.
I'm not sure.
When we say update seat HTML with parentheses, what are we trying to tell the computer to do?
To update the sheets. Like the
Yes.
change the sheet. Oh,
And
see.
what line do we do that on? What line do we start doing that on?
This one?
Yep.
Okay.
So compare 33 to 30.
Can you stop? Thank you. Oh, it has an S.
Mm-hmm. So I'm doing that not to be like standoffish, but
Oh no,
starting to work through your errors, right? And figuring out like, hey, the error isn't telling me really what's going on. But now you've got another problem on 60. It says num selected seats is not defined on 51.
Okay.
I'm sorry, on 60.
I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm trying to go. This works when it wants to work. You said 60?
Yes. Maybe I didn't say 60.
It was 51, I think I saw. 51.
51. Yep. So you've got num selected seats is greater than 0. Where do you set num selected seats? Nope. Take that out. You don't want that in there. Num selected seats. Where do you say num selected seats is going to start at 0?
Isn't it down here?
Well, we set it to 0 when we hit the checkout button, but where do we start it at 0? Trick question. We don't.
It is. It's right there. Right there.
No. That's saying if the number of selected seats is greater than 0, but where do we say, hey, num selected seats is going to start at 0?
Oh, these num rows or like
No.
nums? No, I
It's
don't
a
know.
trick question. You don't have it in your code. So look at my
okay.
code at line 9.
Where did that wasn't always there? No, honestly. Okay. So where would it be? Let me see. Right all the way up there. Okay.
It's got to be so frustrating going back and rewatching these videos and being like, he definitely did not do that in class. He must have edited the video.
Definitely. Oh, council. How do you know if it's refreshed or just these just stay here until they
go back to your code?
I'm trying 1 second. Okay. It was 52.
Oh, you've got a nums selected seats. If you use 3 fingers and swipe over on the trackpad, it will switch you between your 2 tabs.
Oh, this way?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All
I
right.
wasn't doing that.
Let's get your chairs fixed before I let you go and work on the rest of it.
Okay.
So scroll down a little bit. On 44, add an equal between class and the space. Yeah. Yep, there you go. And now you should get your seats back. Excuse me, your chairs back.
Right. Wow, I never had made it this far. Uh-oh. I'm sure I can work on this. 87. But I'd rather not.
You're close. You're really close.
Update.
You renamed it to update seat. Yep.
Dang it. I was thinking because I was trying to get more seats.
You also have one on 102 while you're in there.
Okay, Little Mermaid. All right, everyone, now let's click on it. Nope.
Oh, all right. You're so close though. I'm gonna let you finish the last of it on your own.
All right, thank you.
Zach, go ahead.
Hey, where in the code did you add the aisles?
So 2 places. One, make sure in your script.js in that giant mega span tag that you've got the word seat in for the class. And then in your style.css, I have the seat nth child 3 and 7 at a margin left of 20 px.
I have that.
Okay, so then in your script.js, just make sure you've got the word seat in your class list.
I have that too.
Liar. Go ahead and share your screen.
So I have seat down here,
Yeah, that's definitely good.
and then I have all this in here.
Ah, that space between the nth child and the 7 is causing your problem.
Oh. There we go. Thank you. It's crazy that it's like that minor a thing. Oh, that's weird. When I save it, it automatically puts that space in there.
Share your screen again. Oh, the space after it is fine. It's the space before the parentheses that causes the problem.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Any other questions before I run screaming out of here?
Yes, it's me again. Hi.
Go for it.
Quick question. With hold on, I'm sorry, no longer my console. With seats clicked, I'm looking at like my line 79, and you know what? I'm gonna just share my screen because I just feel crazy because I know what I want to say, but I can't get it out. All
We've
right,
reached that time of night.
yes, looking at line 79 is basically saying that it is an error.
Of undefined settings selected. Okay, so what we need to do is go to your VS Code and col index, row index, selected movie, clicked on seat, selected. So everything on this looks okay. You're getting the data row index out and col index out, and then, going into the seats, pulling all of that out and setting it to selected. So everything looks fine there. My guess is that your data row index and col index on the span tag itself aren't getting set in properly. And so you've got your missing quote on 39 before the $sign.
39 before the $sign.
Nope, 39.
Sorry.
Before the $. Yeah, there you go. Quick quote. Save and test.
Yeah,
now you got a different problem.
Yep, now I feel like I really broke it. So then go back. Okay, I'll go back through and check it. If not, I'll ask tomorrow in class.
I think that is a very simple one where it should say movies instead of
movie. Okay.
I got one last question. Were the chairs actually blue? Like, did they actually turn blue?
When you click on one of the chairs, it should turn blue, but just make sure that in your style.css, you have a selected color blue here. But yes, on ours, when you click on a movie, the chair should turn blue.
Okay, thank you so much.
Last call for questions.
Yeah,
Hi,
I got
everybody.
one more. Have a good night.
Go for it, Zach.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then I'll come to you, Shantina.
Thank you.
Where in my code does it, or do I get it to give me a response when I hit the checkout button?
We didn't actually do it. We just like cleared it. So it went away and made the seats go red. If you want it to do that in script.js, I'm not sharing my screen.
Well, I'm getting like a error when I click it.
Share your screen. Call is not defined on 110. Okay, let's go. It should probably be, you're missing a second for loop there.
Oh, I see.
Because we can't just go through the rows to get to the seats. We got to go through all the columns to get to that as well. Nope. Yep, you got it. And then move that closing curly brace to 116. Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Shantina, you're up.
Thank you. KJ, turn it down for 1 second for me, please. I'm just trying to figure.
You're just trying to get out of here. That's what you're trying to do.
I have a lot of red parentheses and I don't know, because you cleared it up before with the ticks seem to do it.
Yep. So
But,
on 52, you've got a closing tick there.
Here?
Yep. Take that one out. And that should fix a lot of it. Where else did you have colors that don't line up?
It's all of these parentheses, right?
Okay. 54, change row index to col index. It's yep. That isn't causing your problem, but it's going to be a headache for you if you don't get it fixed.
No, thank you.
So let me just, we've reached a point in the night where I say, just hand me the keys and I will fix it.
Thank you.
You have to hit yes on remote control.
See, I was just ready to let you do it.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's not causing any problems. That is wrapped off to not cause any problems. Add update seats. Okay, so I think your problem is going to be in here. Try catch error. Do you have prettier set up to run normally?
I don't think I did prettier. Or no, I'm not sure.
Would you like prettier?
Okay.
So let's just go extensions. And okay, so
Oh.
you've got it installed, so we just need to enable it.
Oh, thank you.
So format on save is turned on. So the only thing we need to do is say default formatter.
Oh.
Oh, you've got that too. Okay, so it must be a syntax error. You do have it all on, but because whatever is causing our colors to be off is also causing prettier to not run.
Oh.
For try update. Oh, it's going to be a stupid one, isn't it?
Sorry.
Please close that screen. Did you say you noticed like these shouldn't be red, right?
Right.
let's just save it and check on it. Do you have it?
Okay, it's down.
There we go. Missing catch or finally after, oh, no, unexpected token on 110. Okay, no, go back. Stay. Okay, 110. It's mad at you all the way down here because you've got an extra closing one here. And then it is confused by that if that for loop. So I'm just gonna comment that one out.
So I was still entering it.
And now you don't have things mad at you. You've got a different error going on there.
Okay.
But at least I don't think these, I think these being reddish pink or whatever color that is normal.
Okay, so that's more of a pink than a red. There's an error type
Yes.
thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Because your browser isn't yelling at you when you load it, and the fact that your movies are showing up here makes me think you're on the right track, and now you just need to work through whatever problem that you have when you select the movie, which is this one.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Although, let me just take a quick look at that one because I'm not sure. Document that get element by ID. Oh, by ID. It's got to be a lowercase d.
Oh.
And I'm going to add in one more. Oh, you've got the console log error. So now your problem is you've got some work to do there.
Okay.
That's going to be in, the problem is going to be somewhere in here.
It's that line 56. Okay. Well, that section. Okay.
Yeah, it's not immediately jumping out at me, but I'm fairly confident that your problem is going to be in there.
Okay.
Unless, let me just check. Yeah, you've got it in here, right? So your problem is going to be somewhere in there.
All right. Thank you, Max.
No problem. Last call. Ironically, last call before I start drinking. Going once, going twice. All right. See you guys tomorrow.